Hello YouTube! Today another bonus video. As you know, I usually do my main videos now on Thursday, while shorter bonus videos can come at any point during the week whenever I want to talk about it. Now, today's video won't be really short, but it's not a real lore video either. Today I want to talk about some of the lore takeaways I had in my time playing the Elder Scrolls Blades. But before we begin, I totally forgot that my channel is now officially 3 years old as of last month. I completely forgot my channel's birthday. And we are now officially in the 4th year of me doing this YouTube thing, so yay! I also made an official new playlist for the 4th year or season or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, check that out or check one of the previous years out to see if you missed anything. With that said, let's quickly kick off with this video. So, previously on this channel I had promised to wait with covering the lore of the Elder Scrolls Blades until I had completed the game, but now I'm having a problem. Please take a look at the footage on the screen. Yeah, as you can see, my phone is so bad that it runs Blades worse than before, and the game is now completely bugging and it's disconnecting at every turn for me. This means that the game is now literally unplayable for me, so I am very glad that they announced that the game is coming to the Nintendo Switch, where the game actually looks a lot better than on my weak potato-ass phone. But that means that before I can truly cover the main story properly, it will be fall this year when it comes to the system, as only then I can play the game in a sort of good way, since right now frame rate issues and bugs prevent me to even progress in the story. So I present to you today some of the lore bits that I have found in the game about the world itself, which I wanted to share anyway at some point, and which are mostly complete. So first of all, the location of the town that the game plays in. A lot of people seem to be debating the location of the town, and while I've not really followed the recent debate, I personally suspect that the town is located somewhere around here, on a relatively small island of the Gold Coast. Let me explain, as there's a lot of little bits pointing at this from my perspective. First of all, the town itself is built in a very clear Cyrodiilic style and contains Aelid ruins under the town, meaning that the location of the town used to be in the sphere of influence of the Aelids, since the Aelids settled there. And we know that the Aelids settled on small islands of the Cyrodiilic coast, like for example Sturk, as there we can find Aelid ruins as well. So it wouldn't be out of the question that they colonized some smaller islands around the coast too, and that this is one of those islands. There's also goblins on the island, which are also native to the region in and around Cyrodiil, but they appear a bit more around Tamriel as well. But that in combination with the Aelid ruins leads me to believe that it's at least close to Cyrodiil. The second pointer to it being an island is its isolation. People in your town will say that they are far from the Empire and that they don't really get many visitors. This could either mean that they are somewhere in the mountains or in a very isolated field or something like that, but it could also mean that they are on an island that isn't connecting to any major trade routes. I suspect that an island, as we can see that there's a small seaport when looking out of the town's gate. We also know that the town wasn't really touched at all during the Great War, which could confirm its isolation, as that would mean that the island is neither on an important trade route and also not a very strategic location. So I think the most logical answer to it is an island off the Gold Coast. However, I don't really think that we will ever get confirmation of the location, as the way Bethesda is presenting the town, they basically just want it to remain a mystery and just have it be a random location. But I think this is the most logical location. So, the next lore takeaway from the game is the time it plays in. With what info I gathered, it probably takes place in the year after the final ending of the Great War, after Hammerfell signed the peace treaty with the Altmerry Dominion. I think that the game takes place in the year 181 of the 4th era. I conclude this out of the fact that around this time, when their hands were no longer full with fighting a war, the Dominion must have officially started hunting down the Blades, as they would have some resources freed up after the peace treaty with Hammerfell was signed. Another hint to this time frame being after the Hammerfell signing of peace is a quote by Telarendil, I'm really bad at pronunciation as all of you know, who is an Altmer history scholar who states that his kind isn't very welcome in Hammerfell after the Great War. This both confirms the time frame of the game to be after the conflict in Hammerfell ended, and at the same time confirms the story that Kamatu tells us in Skyrim, that the resistance against the Dominion is very alive in Hammerfell, and that Hammerfell is in the puppet state as Sadia would have us believe, which is another interesting lore takeaway from the game. And a final note about the time frame is a quote by Arven Dwellas, a Dunmer salesman who travels from Morrowind to Cyrodiil with his wares, and he notes that he might finally be able to go further west to sell his wares, probably meaning Hammerfell, as that's the most western province of Tamriel, together with High Rock, and of course the Somerset Isles. So meaning that he can now travel to Hammerfell or the Somerset Isles now that the war is finally over. The way he says it, now that the war is over, leads me to believe that the Second Treaty of Stros-M'Kai, the Hammerfell Dominion Priest Treaty, must have been signed relatively recently, as appearing a short while ago, travel to the west of Tamriel or read Hammerfell in that was apparently impossible, but now it's possible after the war, and same goes for the Somerset Isles. And for the people saying that it takes place after Skyrim because we meet a dragon, that is simply not a valid argument, as we learn that the dragon has actually been alive for many years that we meet, and that has basically survived the Dragon War and has been in hiding ever since. So I wouldn't take that with a grain of salt, and I think that it's far more logical to place the time frame far closer to the Great War, as that is also the way how Bethesda described it in their initial press conference about the game. Another lore takeaway we have is something that I'm probably gonna use in the video on the Imperial government system if that ever comes out. I've been working on that for a while. It's that the island itself is part of the Empire itself, of course, and has more or less a vassal state status. It's part of the Empire, but it's ruled by a vassal queen who is to rule according to the Empire's wishes and keep the towns on the island in check. In this case, it's the Bloodfall Queen, or Urzoga Grabatul, who isn't too fond of the Empire herself as queen, and who has a pretty interesting backstory, which I haven't fully uncovered yet because the frame drops in Blades don't allow me to continue with my potato phone, so please nobody spoil her story, because I want to uncover it for myself, if that's possible. Another short lore takeaway is that, just like in Skyrim, everybody still refers to Black Marsh as Black Marsh, meaning that the name Argonia that we heard earlier either isn't really official or it's just not used by anyone outside of Argonia. Another interesting takeaway that we can make is that there are still Altmer in the Somerset Isles that disagree with the Thalmor. This is said by the history scholar Talerendil, who says that they just keep themselves silent over the years to people that disagree, because if they disagree, it's most likely that they will keep silent because of the possible consequences one can suffer for disagreeing with the Thalmor in the Somerset Isles. Another thing that we can get reconfirmed by both his dialogue and the description of the Altmeri flag in the game is that the Thalmor are indeed elven supremacists. What I find really weird is that some people doubted that for some reason, although it was pretty clear in both Skyrim and to an extent Legends, but because of the doubt I read somewhere online, I thought to mention it again that we got this reconfirmed in the most recent game, just so we're all on the same page again. Some of the other minor dialogue takeaways are that this guy was taught enchanting by the Synod, to be specific Synod enchantment master Yvonne Bien, who we learn in Skyrim is part of the Synod as she wrote the catalogue of armor enchantments that we can find in the game. According to him, she is actually the foremost enchanter in all of Tamriel around this period, which actually checks out with what we know of her. We also learned that this woman, Helene Duronia, designed some buildings in the Imperial City, and she came to your town, and then you can also build in the Imperial style. The town itself, we learn, is actually a few centuries old. The area itself has been inhabited since the First Age, as we can read in the wall description, but it has been under Imperial rule for a few centuries now, as the original walls of the village, and probably the village itself, was built a few centuries ago by the Empire. We also know that a lot of Imperial buildings have limestone at their base, according to the description of limestone that we can find in the game. And we also know that even if it's isolated, recruitment for the Imperial Legion during the Great War also happened in the town, as this guy was recruited into the Legion. And finally I found out that we need more Khajiit blacksmiths, as this guy just looks great, although not on my device. Now there are actually way more smaller lore takeaways, but those aren't really impactful in any way. For example, we hear that there are some small inhabited islands between Skyrim and High Rock, but those kind of facts don't really add to the full story that we are trying to examine on the channel. In conclusion, I'm pretty happy with the amount of lore that's in the game. It's definitely more than I had expected, to be honest. That said, sorry for the ugly screenshots in the video. That's just my phone not being able to run this game higher than 720p 15 FPS. Anyway, I still hope that you enjoyed the video, and please look forward to my coverage of the main quest of Blades once I get a device that can run it. Or when it releases on Switch in fall, I will definitely play it on that, and then we'll get a full coverage of the main quest. But right now I simply can't get footage, and I can't play through it because I'm right now stuck at the quest with the dragon. But the problem is the moment that the dragon starts moving, I get frame drops and I just die. Like, it just gives me frame drops, my entire screen freezes, and then it says you died. So yeah, that's an issue. If you enjoyed it, consider sticking around for more lore content or watch some of my backlog lore videos. Before I end the video, I want to thank the amazing people on screen, my dear patrons, and especially my top patrons Hayden Barnes, Gabriel Binda and Sam Kempling, some of the most amazing people I've ever met. And with that said, I will see you all in the next lore video on Thursday. Bye bye.